President Biden announced new sanctions against Russia yesterday over its invasion of Ukraine. And experts warn that the crisis will likely have an impact here in Hawaii. Joining us this morning with more is Hawaii Congressman Ed Case. Good morning, Congressman. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Now, first off, some people in Hawaii are wondering, since Ukraine is not part of NATO, why is the U.S. involved in this crisis?
Ukraine is the second largest country in Europe. It's a country of 44 million people who have come through socialism and communism into democracy. It wants to chart its own course. It wants its course to be with a community of nations, including our country, around the world, who for 3 generations have tried to abide by certain rules in terms of managing conflict, in terms of joint economic and community and social advancement, and that's been largely successful. And that's a threat to Russia. And so Russia has decided to try to prevent the Ukraine from doing that and to come in and do what no country has done in Europe for 3 generations, and that is just to outright invade another country without provocation, without any excuse whatsoever. And if that stands, first of all, that is a direct threat to the 30 members of NATO, and Ukraine is clearly aligned with us. But it's also a direct threat to the rest of the world, because if Russia can do that there, then why can't a country like China do that in our own backyard of the Indo-Pacific? So the fact of the matter is, whether it's formally a member of NATO or not, the consequences are huge to our country and to our world.
Now, Congressman, are the economic sanctions issued by President Biden enough to hurt Russia? And how will Russia's expected counterattack impact Hawaii residents? Because we're bracing for higher gas prices and electronics.
Well, first of all, they can, in fact, hurt Russia severely if we all hang together. And Russia's calculation is that the world will not hang together. The world will not be willing to pay the price of those sanctions on Russia, which are very, very severe, the most severe sanctions on any country in really the history of sanctions. But it has to happen because all of the countries of the world participate in those sanctions. And as you've already pointed out, there are costs back home to those sanctions. So there's a price to pay. This is not free. And so in those areas where Russia does supply the world with goods, and where the world exports to Russia, where we have basically cut off those exports and imports to really isolate Russia and to have a consequence on Russia, we can expect that there will be consequences in those areas. So yes, there is unfortunately going to be an impact on energy prices, for example, and there will be an impact on industries that are reliant on exports to Russia, which is not largely Hawaii, but we also clearly have an interest in international stability, especially in the Indo-Pacific. That impacts, among other things, our tourist market directly.
Now, what would be the biggest threat to Hawaii if the attacks escalate? Is a cyber war next, or deployment of our military to Ukraine?
Well, clearly the fact that Russia has done this in Ukraine and may well embolden other countries in our own Indo-Pacific. And let's not forget that Russia is also a Pacific force. Russia has a formidable military in the Pacific. I think that, and obviously our Indo-Pacific command, our military here in Hawaii, is very much been very much following this and is very much prepared for that. I think the most immediate possibilities, if it comes to that, are in the cyber realm, because, of course, Russia does practice cyber warfare. It probably has had some impact here as it kind of explored some of our cyber defenses throughout our country, including Hawaii. And so if Russia goes down that road, I would expect that cyber would be where we would see some of that. But let's be really clear. We have very, very advanced cyber as well, both defenses and offense. And so, I hope it doesn't escalate into that. I hope Russia changes its mind in Ukraine. But we have to be prepared for these possibilities when countries like Russia do what they just did in Ukraine.
All right, there you have it. Congressman Ed Case, thank you so much for joining us this morning and providing some perspective on all of this, the crisis in Ukraine, and have a great day.
Thank you so much.